I think
Okay, let's. Sorry.
Gaia
Okay.
and probably kids are on holidays.
Okay. Here comes Kumari Priya. Okay, let's start. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Varanta Swati Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachaline. Nivasisha Shunya Hari Pushtatari Shatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Jai Danya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, all right. So we're speaking about a word that quite a few people are familiar with, even from the Western perspective. I think that's samadhi. Yeah, samadhi. So what is it all about? Let's read about that in relationship to Krishna consciousness and specifically Nam Bhajan. So that's page, I think Mother Kumari Priya has the book as well, 591. So perhaps if you can begin, Mother Chandravali, chapter 30.
Chapter 30, Attaining Trance. Earlier chapters have outlined the progressive stages of devotional cultivation known as remembrance in Nam Sankirtan, which has as its culmination trance or samadhi. The current chapter is dedicated to describing the trance of great devotees. This account will enable the reader to envision the perfection of sadhana, bhav, as it unfolds through the samadhi of transcendentalists. Then in the following chapter, we will describe the characteristics of and the means of attaining smaran samadhi. In this way, readers may become eager for the sadhya this book has so often spoken of, and knowledgeable of that very last stage of sadhana, which resides and strives for that sadhya. We begin by reviewing a practitioner's progress in Smarandas, which was elaborately described in the preceding chapters. I was thinking, can we recap on that a little bit? The other 4 stages. What do you think?
Sorry, I'm speaking away and I'm muted.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Recapping before we go to the 5th stage.
Yeah, Maharaj will do that now. He just explained that we begin by reviewing the practitioner's progress in Smaranda. So he's going to give a review now.
Oh, okay.
In this paragraph here, yeah. Okay. So everyone knows what sadhya means?
No, knowledge.
It means perfection.
Yeah.
So we're doing sadhana to reach perfection, hopefully. Yeah. And Maharaj is describing that perfection is bhava, yeah, as it unfolds through the process of smaran. So now he's going to summarize quite in a condensed way the last chapter, or the last couple of chapters. Okay, you can read on.
At the first stage called smaran, the sadhaka tries to understand the Lord, a process that gradually awakens tangible attraction to Krishna in his heart. That attainment is known as dharana, the second step of Nam Bhajan.
Yeah, just Marge given a very brief explanation here, but this first stage, which happens to be called smaran, is when one is endeavoring to bring the mind under control, to hear the Maha Mantra. And that's one's predominant effort, in that it is an effort. It's like trying to straighten a dog's tail. Very difficult. But one is trying, one is sincere, and one is in trying to bring to attention hearing the holy name. One is making that effort. Yeah. So even if you even making the effort, then you're going to come to the next stage. Yeah. So this is obviously above the stage of offensive chanting. At least this is offenseless chanting. The one's trying to be inattentive. No, sorry, not trying to be inattentive. Trying to be attentive. All right. So that's what the first stage you just described. And the next stage is the next sentence. That attainment is known as dharana. Yeah, you can continue up.
With firm attraction, the devotee now meditates not just on his name, form, and qualities, but also on his pastimes.
Yeah, remember that as well. So I keep trying to help to broaden it out a bit because it's very condensed here. So remember, we spoke about, Maharaj spoke about, well, if we accept the principle that the holy name is non-different, say, from Krishna's form. So a certain stage of our chanting, the form will always be manifest as soon as we chant the holy name. Yeah, as soon as we invoke the name, we invoke the form of Krishna within our heart's mind as well. The two cannot be separated because they are not. But at this stage of attainment, one has access to that meditation through the holy name. And then it unfolds into meditating that form. Then one becomes attracted to the qualities that's possessed in the form of Krishna. Remember we discussed that? Just like if you meet someone, you don't just meet the body, you meet the person who has specific qualities, isn't it? If you're meeting someone, they've got specific qualities by which you can know them, where others who just look at their picture cannot know them. But because we know them, when we see them, we become conscious of that person's qualities. Yeah. So in the same way, Krishna's name manifests the form and then the qualities. And then it goes further it manifests the specific pastimes. So this is all going on with an accomplished devotee during the chanting of the holy name. Yeah. And I think I just saw Dhruva Maharaj has just appeared here. I think he's driving at the moment. He just drove us from Leicester, so he's tuning in. Haribol, keep your eyes on the steering wheel, sir.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Okay, everyone? Did that help a little bit more? Okay. Any questions, please feel free to ask and we'll attempt to answer. Yeah.
This practice is known as dhyana, and its accomplishment gradually submerges the sadhaka in the nectar of Krishna's sweetness. Swimming in the ocean of nectar is known as
Dhruvanashmiti, yeah.
And diving to the depths of that ocean to collect the pearls of Krishna's personal appearance is what we know as samadhi, the subject at hand.
Yeah, so Dhruvanashmiti is one has gone past the beginning stages of smarana, and one is simply, as described here, the sweetness of the name, form, and qualities takes the devotee on a journey. Yeah, and the devotee follows within his mind the journey that the holy name is revealing. So one is this nice description, like one is swimming in the depths of the ocean of the holy name. Yeah. And then one becomes so much attached to that, then one enters what's known as samadhi. And that will be described. It's a very interesting discussion, this samadhi, where one goes so deep into the meditation that they lose sense that they are even meditating, if that makes sense. They lose touch with the external body, the material world, and they enter into the spiritual realm through the holy name, and they even lose contact with the fact that they are meditating on Krishna. So that's called samadhi. Sounds attractive? Yes, we want that. Yeah. So that's going to be described now. Attaining trance.
After many years of sincere effort, a fortunate devotee arrives at the very last stage of sadhana, the supreme attainment of deep attachment to the Lord. His body, mind, and the senses motionless, the trance of perfected sadhaka resembles the calm waters of the ocean when the wind has ceased. In the stage of trance, a pure devotee is no longer aware of distinction like meditator and meditation. What to speak of external things? The only reality for him is the object of meditation and nothing else. While
Now here comes some examples which is given in Bhagavatam.
While absorbed in samadhi in his Himalayan hermitage, Markandeya Rishi's material mind stopped functioning, and he could not notice that Lord Shiva and his consort had come to visit him. He was so wrapped in thoughts of Krishna that he lost all awareness of himself and the external world. Lord Shiva had to invoke his mystic powers to enter the sage's heart and so arouse him to awareness of his presence.
Yeah, now this is quite an amazing description given of this samadhi, because it's not as if he went in samadhi for the last 10 minutes of his japa period. He was in samadhi for thousands and thousands of years, apparently, just meditating on Krishna, on Radha Krishna. So it wasn't like the last half an hour of his japa. It was thousands of years. So you can imagine, he's pretty deep into that meditation. So when Lord Shiva and Parvati come, although their presence is very powerful, he wasn't even aware of their presence. He wasn't even aware of himself. You know, he lost complete touch with everything apart from Krishna. So you could say pretty absorbed. Okay.
Such is true samadhi. No longer does the concept of I am meditating exist. A consciousness still slightly present at the stage of anusmriti. In samadhi, the advanced devotee is submerged in the Lord's pastime and attributes. He's like a great shark fearlessly plying the deep waters of the ocean, oblivious to the moments of lesser fish, even more so of those insignificant men on land.
Yeah, that's why we have the book Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu, the ocean of devotion, which Prabhupada gave a summary study of, called the Nectar of Devotion. I think we mentioned before, I like it. I mentioned how Rupa Goswami divides the ocean of bhakti into different waves. You know, different oceans has different waves. So this poetic expression is being highlighted here as well, because it is just like that for such a devotee. They are swimming deep in the ocean of rasa, of Krishna's pastimes. Yeah. Yeah.
And such was Markandeya's trance, which Jiva Goswami gives as the example of a sadhaka samadhi. Because Markandeya's material mind had stopped functioning, the sage failed to notice that Lord Shiva and his wife, the controller of the universe, had personally come to see him. Markandeya was so absorbed in meditation that he was unaware of either himself or the external world. Devotional samadhi parallels the 8th stage of Astanga Yoga attained by yogis with great difficulties, but realized by a pure devotee with relative ease. By the grace of Nam Sankirtan and by serving Krishna and things related to him, a devotee's remembrance matures to its perfection. At this stage of devotion, even the Vaidhi sadhaka has an exclusive preference for the form of Krishna, while the Raganuga Bhakta has a well-defined vision of who he desires to emulate and in what service to the divine couple. Short of transcendental revelation, Samadhi gives the fullest mental conception of a devotee's spiritual identity.
Okay, any questions here? Let's try and list the 8 stages of Ashtanga Yoga. Yama, Niyama, yeah, Asana, Pranayam, and then, yeah, and then the stages here, Pranayam,
Dhyana,
yeah,
Dharana,
Dharana, Dhyana, Dhruvana Smriti, and Samadhi. Okay. It's interesting because often we don't make that correlation with spiritual development, but it follows the same as you read about the classic yogis or meditators. You could even say those who are meditating on something impersonal, you know. Anyway, if you look online, you look at the 8 stages of Ashtanga Yoga, and so much will come up. When I was doing a little class on this, I looked it up. So much will come up, but none of it's, of course, in reference to bhakti. But here, Maharaj is correlating it with bhakti. You follow? Yeah, and it's taken from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. His commentary on the verse on the Nectar of Instruction. So it's bona fide. Okay, so interesting here at this stage of devotion, even the Vaidhi sadhaka. So this is not a stage of perfection, it seems. It's a stage of practice. It's a bit confusing for me at this point, but at this stage of devotion, even the Vaidhi sadhaka, one who's following Vidhi, one whose inspiration comes from Vidhi rather than heartfelt attraction. Yeah. So there's this stage of devotion, even the Vaidhi sadhaka has an exclusive preference for the form of Krishna. Okay. While the Raganuga Bhakta has a well-defined vision of who he desires to emulate, etc. So that means the Raganuga Bhakta has been practicing, meditating on Krishna, name, form, qualities, and pastimes as a daily practice. That's Raganuga Sadhana. So the Raganuga Bhakti, his meditation is a bit more well-defined, yeah, with a specific service as well to the divine couple. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was interesting. It's also can be termed on the Vaidhi sadhana. Yeah. Any questions? Now, this is all to inspire us in our little universe when we pick up our japa beads, as we do every day, when we sit down on the sofa, when we get everything right, we sit down on the chair, and we put our hands in the bead bag, and we put the counting beads up, and we start chanting like we've done every day for 20, 30 years. This is, hopefully it's going to inspire us in that japa yagna, you know, that we're doing. This is, yeah. All right. Anything else from anyone out there? There's not many Saruras today, or 7 devotees? 6. Me make 7. Hare Krishna. All right. Let's, please. Yeah.
Like Vaidhi sadhaka, so would be thinking in a way like the word superficial, like just the basic pastimes of Krishna. Whereas when one gets to Raganuga Bhakti, they would go in deeper.
No, the Vaidhi sadhaka will be just generally, he or she maybe even just, sometimes Maharaj describes that sometimes a devotee may be hesitant to enter into the realms of Leela Smaranam or Krishna's qualities. So they may just be meditating upon the sound, upon the holy name itself. But through that, through that practice, then they will, through purification of Krishna's name, they will eventually come to a meditation upon Krishna. But they won't necessarily try to practice that. For various reasons, they may feel hesitant. They may feel themselves out of humility unqualified, or they may not have read about the different levels of smaran. So they're just chant. So they're just. But then, from this practice, it seems they will have a preference to a specific meditation on the form of Krishna. So, please, yes.
Yeah, the Vaidhi Bhakti we're talking about.
Yeah.
Chanting, deity worship, and because they're serving or cooking or aarti is all deity worship. And chanting is together. Is it separate or is it together? The Vaidhi Bhakti does include everything.
Well, what's being described here specifically is the Nam Bhajan, through chanting the holy name.
So it's only chanting the holy name, and that is everything.
Yeah. Although it's also been described that through the depth of meditation through the holy name, then that meditation will expand beyond one's japa and flow into other devotional activities as well. So you mentioned cooking, you mentioned worshipping the deity. So their service becomes a stimulus for meditation. Yeah, because they're so enthralled and attracted by that meditation. It's like, I can explain it. I can't because I try it, but it's explained just like if you, when you become radiation. Yeah, when one becomes poisoned by radiation, it kind of gradually pervades and affects the whole body. So the deep meditation and revelation that comes from chanting, it does radiate through one's subtle body. So even when they're doing other devotional acts other than chanting, then they often enter into the same type of meditation.
Because the chanting is still going on while doing other things.
Yeah, you could say that. The reverberation of that is, I'm sure everyone's felt to some degree. Do you know when you've been in ecstatic kirtan, sometimes you may have been in long kirtan for 2 or 3 hours, or, and then when you leave the kirtan, I've had that in Hungary where there's kirtan for hours and hours and hours, and it just even when you leave the kirtan, it's just reverberating through your subtle body. And you're in the kirtan, even when you're sleeping, there's the kirtan going on, and when you wake up, you're still in the kirtan. It's still the reverberation because you spent so many hours in that atmosphere.
Yeah, we experienced that. So
yeah,
it's part of this Vaidhi Bhakti then. Vaidhi Bhakti.
Yeah, but it is part of Vaidhi Bhakti. It's been described here. It is, but so one is applying oneself to it. So the fact that because you've heard about the attainments of it, so you apply yourself because Sastra is offering these different levels of perfection. So you decide, it may not be a spontaneous attraction, but you read it's the direction that you want to go in. So, right, it's a bit complicated, but that's called Vaidhi.
Thank you, yes.
Spontaneous means it happens. It just happens in a natural way. No, it's just you'll just become like a magnet. It tracks iron filing. It's magnet. All right. All right. Anything else on that? Any comments on that? Okay. Anyone else has the book out there?
Kumari Priya's got it.
Kumari Priya, she may not be convenient for her to read, I'm not sure. If you can, please make yourself known. Otherwise, I can have a read.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna, sorry, I'm
Hare
just
Krishna.
walking back home. I
No
won't be able
problem,
to
Ava.
read today. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, I'll read a couple of paragraphs. Okay. Everyone's on board with us? No one's jumped off the boat? Hare Krishna.
They're still there.
Great. In the extensive
Yeah, still
commentary.
here.
Great. In the extensive commentary to the Srimad Bhagavatam verse beginning with Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, that happens to be the longest purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam, by the way, 7th canto. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smala Pada Sevanam Archanam Handanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada summarizes the 5th stage of Smaranda, saying, quote, Samadhi or trance is awakening or likening for concentration on a particular form of Krishna. Therefore, Samadhi trance can be possible in 5 different ways in terms of one's relationships. So what's those 5 different ways that Prabhupada is speaking of here?
Will it be Smaran Kirtan?
No,
No.
relation, like
Yeah,
servitude.
go on. Servitude, Dasyaras, Sakyaras,
Vatsalya,
Vatsalyaras,
Madhurya.
and Madhuryaras. So that's the Prabhupada says here, can be possible in 5 different ways in terms of one's relationship. Yeah. Unquote. In short, this state of illumination in which a devotee sometimes relishes a direct vision of the Lord, learned scholars call samadhi, and generally it is referred to as self-realization. So this is a vision that Krishna is revealing himself. Yeah. Also called, it's another word for it as well. It's called, I'll think of it in a minute. Spruti, a momentary, astonishing flash of Krishna's manifestation within the heart. Yeah. Although the practitioner may worship Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes through the stages of smarandas, with each successive step of his meditation to samadhi, these attributes become clearer, sweeter, and fuller, manifesting fullness at the final phases of trance. As stated in the previous chapter, every successive step includes within it the attainments of the previous step, with trance possessing the attainments of all 5 steps of smarandas. Yeah, so this, well, depends on individual practice, but it's hoped that this is advancement in spiritual life. This is how we can gauge what our advancement is, basically just in relationship to one's adhikar and purity and qualification to enter these different levels of meditation. Yeah. It's not as if advancement is not judged by a position you have within the temple or within the community, or may not be even by how many years you've been around, but advancement. So hopefully we may be able to see that. Hopefully we can feel ourselves when we sit down and chant japa after 10, 15, 20 years, it should be more sweeter than when we first began. Yeah. It should be more clearer, it should be more sweeter, and the experience more fuller. Now, it may not always be like that. Sometimes we may become distracted and it may be difficult. Yeah. Sometimes, as we mentioned before, sometimes we may be making offenses while chanting. So therefore, we're not going to experience what's being described here. Yeah. We may be habituated to being distracted. And unfortunately, we may not make a specific it may become the norm for us to be distracted. So that's just our japa. We're just distracted. So one may continue chanting japa out of because one's made a vow to. But actually, we could go on. But actually, what's going to happen generally, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions this, that if one is chanting offensively, then gradually, as the years go by, there's a song we used to listen to like that. As the years go by, then gradually one's desire or one's devotion becomes mixed with material aspiration. Yeah. And that may become prominent. Yeah. And material desires may come as well. So then things may get complicated, or then one may just, one thing leads to the other. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that. I'm just commenting on the fact that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that all offenses arise from inattentive chanting. But the idea is that if one is chanting attentive, then one will be experiencing this, and one will be able to identify anarthas or material frames of mind quite easily, because one is associating with Krishna. So one is getting pure association through the name, and then one is better able to guard oneself. But if one is not going deeper in the holy name, is not getting the shelter of the holy name, then just again, give an example of, but from another context, of radiation. One may be affected by material aspect, and one may subtly or grossly, one may invest their so-called material aspirations into spiritual, or they may start to desire, like there's a stage called Tarangarangini, where after some time one has access to, or one becomes, say, for instance, one becomes wealthy, say a temple has lots of money, then one may find oneself subtly enjoying and using the assets of Krishna in order to live very comfortably. Yeah, and it's very subtle. They may justify it as well. This is often a problem in I'm going off the track here, but I'll try and get back. It's often a problem in Mayapur, where simple village people, they join the ashram, they become brahmacharis, then they become managers of a guest house. And then they see money they've never seen before. And then they somehow or another, they find themselves, or they secure for themselves, a very material, cushy situation. And that's become their goal. You understand? It's very subtle. And they become very much attached. And gradually they lose a taste for the holy name. And they become more attached to what's called, the waves, Tarangarangini, that the waves that come from being around, practicing devotion for a number of years. One gets praise, one gets position, one may get some assets. It seems good, but they've been cheated. Yeah, they've been cheated. They haven't got the real thing. The real thing is this. Yeah, over the years, the name becomes clearer and sweeter. That's advancement. And from that, one's naturally going to be detached. Naturally, spontaneously, one will not be attracted to the material energy because the attraction is so overwhelming for Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. But if that's not there, the jiva has to be absorbed in something. Anyway, Hare Krishna, speaking about weeds here, that's mentioned, the weeds of devotion that can come from inattentive chanting. Any questions on that or comment?
We can
Something to
try
think
our
about.
best to chant with full attention, but
Yes,
often
that's it.
it doesn't work. Even if you're struggling, it just doesn't work. Attention,
Yeah.
just distractions simply come.
Yeah, anyone experience that? I'm sure we do. So therefore we have to, at least we have to have a determination, and we have to recognize what we want and what we don't want. At least if we can do that, you know. And so we might have to analyze, we might have to do an inventory. Like sometimes we experience that. Sometimes I've experienced that where I go weeks, or sometimes it seems like a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, and my chanting is not what it was 6 months ago. You know, why is that? Because other things have come in my mind, other distractions are weighing on my mind, and I'm not giving it the quality attention the holy name really revealed, really. So therefore I have to do an inventory, and that's why it's good as well to, at this point, you can make a concerted cry for Krishna's grace and make an asserted effort to bring your mind in line.
How do
With
you
your
make inventory then? What do you do to make an inventory?
Well, you may analyze them. You may analyze, well, what type of things am I absorbing when I'm not chanting? How much time am I absorbed in Gramya Gata? How am I spending too much? Am I too distracted by the news of the world? Am I too distracted by the faults of other people, etc.? There may be many things. Am I too distracted by my family responsibilities? Is it my faults going too much in that direction? No, they should do. We have the families, but you know, it may just, you know, I know, I know, you know, I know, I mean, I won't say names, but sometimes I see devotees and they're literally they're chanting with their right hand, and they're surfing on their computer, on the internet with their left hand. And they're sitting there, sometimes, you know, sitting, and at Hare Krishna, and they're just buzzing around on the internet. And they don't even, yeah. One time, one devotee was doing that, and I told him, I said, Prabhu, at this present in time, your spiritual life is coming to an end. You are making an offense to Krishna. You're making a gross offense. And this offense, what you're making now in this few minutes, is going to affect you for the next 15 years. I exaggerate a bit. It's going to have an effect on your devotional practice because you are offending Krishna. You have the japa in one hand, you're looking on the news and internet in the other hand. I'm sorry to remind you, Prabhu, but you are offending Krishna. Please stop offending Krishna. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm also preaching to myself, I guess, but I try to avoid that at least, you know. So there's many things that can be Maharajka shot. But yeah, so we should make the effort to the best ability that we can. We should make the effort. You know?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Hare Krishna. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Excuse me. Okay. Moreover, the first 4 levels. Okay, let me just go back. As stated in the previous chapter, every successive step includes within it the attainments of the previous step, with trance possessing the attainments of all 5 steps of smarandas. Moreover, the first 4 levels of smarandas are sometimes exhibited to the perfection by sadhakas who have advanced beyond them. Similarly, devotees who have attained transcendence in bhava and prema sometimes exhibit transcendental versions of these 5 stages, especially that of samadhi. While both practitioners and transcendentalists exhibit similarities in the external manifestation of these forms of remembrance, their internal experiences differ significantly. And again, this is very much the case with their absorption in samadhi. So this is speaking about comparison between yogis and meditators who may experience these different stages. But sometimes it's seen that the devotee would exhibit these different levels. Yeah. But there's a big difference in both. Oh, no, actually, no, let's mistaken here. Marge is speaking about, speaking about sadhakas compared to those stages of perfection. So sometimes, let me just rephrase that. So sometimes a sadhaka, by the grace of the holy name, may get really absorbed in the holy name. Yeah. To the extent that it's like samadhi. Yeah. By the grace of the holy name. So therefore, Maharaj says, therefore one must be careful to distinguish the samadhi's descriptions of practicing devotees from their liberated counterparts. As mentioned earlier, we will now give examples of the trance of great devotees and transcendentalists, and in this way illustrate the goal of sadhana samadhi. And now some examples come. Yeah, some examples come. Okay, time check. Anything there? Any questions? Anyone? Okay. At the beginning of Satyuga, Kadama-Muni underwent devotional meditation, yoga mishra bhakti. So mishra means mixed, yeah. So his bhakti was mixed with predominance of wanting perfection in yoga, also known as Kriya Yoga, with the aim of satisfying the Supreme Lord. So he had a specific desire. Anyone could know what the desires of Kadama-Muni was, why he wanted to please the Lord? He wanted a wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted a wife. Of course, inspired by, universal divinity, but still he wanted. Yeah. So here's a verse describing about his samadhi. So this is interesting because although Kadama-Muni was meditating on Krishna to fulfill his material desire, because of his attainment in that meditation, Krishna was pleased with him and appeared to him. Yeah. Even though it wasn't pure devotional service, because Krishna was pleased with the level and depth of his samadhi. Krishna chose to appear before him. Okay, quote, during that period of penance, the sage Kadama-Muni, by worship through devotional service in trance, propitiated, means he pleased or invoked the personality of Godhead, who is the quick bestower of all blessings upon those who flee to him for protection. Unquote. The sage was successful in his sadhana, and the Lord appeared to fulfill his desires. However, from the ensuing description, it is clear that Lord Vishnu appeared not in Kadama's heart, but externally before his eyes. This is called Shakshat Darshan, okay? This exceptional darshan was possible because of the extreme compassion the Lord felt for Kadama's austerities. Readers may note just how appreciative Krishna is of the devotee who has attained a very difficult stage of samadhi. After the Lord's departure, Kadama made his hermitage and underwent penance on the shores of a lake whose name Srimad Bhagavatam explains, quote, "It was called Bindu Sarova because drops of tears, Ashru Bindava, had fallen there from the eyes of the Lord, who was overwhelmed by extreme compassion for the sage who had sought his protection," unquote. Kadama Muni was clearly a practitioner, for he harbored a material desire, a good wife who would worship, who would satisfy his lustful desire.
So this is from his chanting, right? I mean, he was chanting, but these were desires were coming up. So Krishna fulfills these desires, right?
Yeah, now these are great yogis, these are great mystics. So even their quote unquote lustful desire is inspired by universal divinity for him to play a significant role.
Yeah.
Yeah, so who said Devahuti, isn't it? Kadama Muni?
Yeah.
And then their son is Kapila. But still, the example still stands that he wasn't that he was a practitioner. He wasn't a perfected devotee because he had some desire for his own self. Yeah. Yeah, it is unusual that at this stage of devotion such desires persist. So he's at the stage of samadhi, but those desires are still there. He's achieved a high platform of absorption, but he's carrying with it desire. This time for a good wife who will satisfy his quote unquote lustful desires. In pure devotional service, samadhi is characterized by freedom from material desire. The heart is pure. Nonetheless, the Lord considered the sage so dear that he not only fulfilled Kadama's desire, but became his son. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? Not only became him a wife, he also, "I'll become your son as well." So then one may question how it was possible for a yogi like Kadama to become an object of Krishna's affection, even as his heart was still tainted by lust. Okay, we touched on the answer already, but the answer is that while Kadama's yogic powers elevated him to samadhi, the mercy was made possible by the power of his attachment in devotion. All right. So he's mixed, okay? So part of that mixture was devotion. Yeah. So that's what invoked the mercy of Krishna, actually. Such is the power of even mixed devotional service. In other words, while a hatha yogi may not see the Lord even after lifetimes of effort, Kadama was able to do so in a relatively short time by being steeped in bhakti as much as he was in yoga. All right, so it wasn't ananya, but still is very powerful. Yeah, the mixture was even, it seems like here. Yeah, the mishra of bhakti was very strong. And that's what the Lord was reciprocating with, even if there was desire there to satisfy his lustful desire. The Lord confirms the power that devotional yoga samadhi has in attracting him. Quote, "All Deva Rishi, the yogis engaged in meditation are not able to satisfy me as fully as those engaged in Kriya Yoga. Yoga Mishra Bhakti." So yoga that has as its focus Krishna, yeah, which means bhakti. The Kriya yogis who have attained jnana can by my grace rise to the stage of samadhi. Unquote. It is a rare samadhi revelation that enables a devotee like Kadama Muni to see the Lord with his eyes. if Krishna appears to the sadhaka, he usually does so within their minds. All right. Any questions or comments?
So I'm just thinking, so Krishna is like from this example of Kadama Muni, Krishna is really looking for devotion of a devotee.
He's looking for it. Krishna is really attracted to
Yes.
it.
Even
That's what he's, yeah.
Sorry, we might have like impurities, desires, material, whatever. But if one is really fixed and want to perform seriously devotional service, Krishna will be pleased, and then eventually these desires would go.
Yeah, that's the, yeah. So now having material desires is not, doesn't necessarily mean an impediment to your practicing pure devotional service and attaining perfection. Is that you're able to isolate and separate those desires within, so you're not, they're there, but you're practicing bhakti in such a way that you're praying to become free from them. But this is different here. Kadama Muni wasn't praying to become free from a desire for a wife.
Did he not in the end, when he realized it after flying in that plane and living nicely for so long,
Yeah.
a point when he realized that this is not what I really want. He wanted to go. So
that reminds of this. That's verse Satyam Tishati Atido Niyanam, that the Lord fulfills the material desires of a devotee who worships him for that way, but he doesn't say that he does it in such a way that the devotee does not desire the same thing. So here, this is with Kadama Muni, that you're right. Yeah, after he'd been on the plane and this and that and this mansion, traveling here and everywhere, etc., his desire for a good wife was completely satisfied. And yeah, as you're right, Malchandra, at some point he walked left. Yeah, gave the son and walked left, didn't even turn back to look behind. Done. Now he goes, to go back into samadhi. But this time his samadhi would have been such that it wouldn't be mixed, because Krishna kindly fulfilled that desire. And of course it had a divine purport to it as well. His son happened to be Kapila Muni. So yeah. All right. So anyway, there's a few things about samadhi. Yeah. And we'll continue next week. All right. This example given next is Lord Brahma and his samadhi, where he saw Vaikuntha, is given. Bilva Mangala Thakur, another example is given of his samadhi, etc. Then although Maharaj doesn't describe it at length, then he makes a wonderful correlation. He describes all these yogis and mystics, even Lord Brahma and others, and then he compares them to the residents of Vrindavan, Shubal, Radharani, and it explains how their level of absorption far outweighs the absorption and samadhi of Kadama Muni and other great mystics. Radharani, for example, the pinnacle of the essence of all mystic perfections. So we'll hear about that next week. We'll hear about that next week. Yeah, I'll be here. It should be right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And please, those of you tuning in, we have a Bhagavad Gita tomorrow, 5th chapter on. So please join us for that if you can. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And I
you.
wish you a happy japa
Jai.
tomorrow. Hari bol.
Hari Bol.
Krishna Mangal Prabhu ki jai.
Everyone ki jai. Hare Krishna.